Hello, and welcome to our podcast, Together Through It, Wisdom from Unexpected Journeys. On each episode, you'll hear honest, heartfelt stories from families whose lives took an unexpected turn, and the courage, connection, and support that help them find a new way forward. Through challenges and moments of joy, these journeys reveal resources, relationships, and strengths worth carrying into your own life. Joining me today is a good friend and fellow parent whose daughter was born with a cleft lip and later in life was diagnosed with a neurodevelopmental condition. With the help of caring doctors, supportive teachers, and other families who walked alongside them, they found their way forward together. I'm Angela Paxton. My hope is that this podcast invites you to feel seen, inspired, and a little less alone as we all take this journey together through it. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you so much, Angela. I am so thrilled to be here with you today. And if anything that we mentioned today can help someone, I'm really glad to be able to help.
Kim, talk a little bit about, I want to hear about your family, but tell the listeners a little bit how we met.
Sure, absolutely. Well, before we get into my background, Angela and I met in a mom support group. And I was trying to think of the year. I think it was like 2007, 2008.
That sounds
maybe.
right, but I don't know.
Way back. And it really was helpful. I remember thinking, another mom told me about it, and I thought, oh, but I'm not a writer. And she said, you don't have to be. It's just a support group for moms who have children with different needs. Some were medical, some were educational. So I just found that to be a great support. So, and of course I got to meet Angela. So that was wonderful.
Great. Kim, before we talk about Lauren, tell us about the rest of your family.
Sure. Well, I grew up in Indianapolis. My husband and I both. We went to IU for college, and we actually met on a tennis court when we were home during the summer. We've been together now for next month. It will be 39 years. So long time. 32 of those are married. We have 3 grown children who have birthdays coming up soon. They'll be 21, 23, and 25. Currently, our youngest is finishing up her junior year at IU. Our son is in the Navy, and our oldest, Lauren, lives with us at home and works part-time.
Tell us about Lauren. What are her likes? Tell us about her personality.
Absolutely. Lauren, our oldest, she's a sweet, kind young woman. She's a devout Christian, which actually has helped us a lot in this journey and helped her as well. She reads her meditations daily without fail. She loves attending church at Holland, and several months ago actually joined me in being on the greeter team, which she enjoys and it helps her socially. She enjoys listening to contemporary Christian music, country music. She loves sports, especially basketball and football in both college and professional NBA and NFL. And she can name just about any player. This girl is on it. Her Final Four bracket actually did better than mine this year. She's a big Colts, Pacers, and Indiana Fever fan. And of course, IU. We can't miss an IU game with Lauren. I would love someday to see her be able to transition her passion for sports into a job someday, but that's a longer term goal.
Can you share a moment when you first realized that your life with Lauren was taking a different path than with your other kids?
Oh, absolutely. Well, and remember, she's our oldest, so she was my first experience as a parent. And we actually had 2 life events where we could say our life had taken a different path. Lauren was born with a cleft lip on one side. So right from the very beginning, that was our first foray into knowing that our parenting journey was going to be different. So there was a lot involved with that. Kind of the backstory there is that We struggled with infertility for 3 years, and we were thrilled to get pregnant in September 2000. Had a wonderful pregnancy, baby healthy. So when she was born with a cleft lip, that was a surprise. It had not been detected on the ultrasound. By her 5th birthday, she'd had 3 corrective surgeries with another 4 to follow in the rest of her childhood. So again, right from the moment I gave birth, our parenting journey would be different. I didn't know how different down the road, that we'd have a secondary issue coming up later, but that was our experience. I have to say, we were supported by the doctors, and we went down to Riley 2 days after giving birth. I'll tell you what, that was an experience as a new mom. We had an entire research team observing me trying to breastfeed. So that was an ordeal, to say the least. It was hard to present a perfectly healthy baby for surgeries, to be honest, at 3, 6 months, and 3.5. I'm so thankful for the craniofacial team at Riley. They were so supportive and connected me to other parents and support groups like Camp About Face. It was just so incredibly supportive to talk to other parents who were farther down the road in their parenting journey, whose child had been born with a cleft, so I could get a glimpse of what the high school years would be like for my daughter. I know Laura mentioned this last week, but the old adage of knowledge is power is really true. I just tried to learn all I could. We didn't have any family experience with a cleft lip, and so we were able to learn a lot and grow in that role. What I wanted to talk about too is Camp About Face. When she was 16 to 18, she was in their leadership academy because she was one of the older kids. And so that helped her feel more important in the, because she'd gone for several years, and be a mentor to some of the younger kids. So that was one of those empowerment phases for her that I think is important, that every parent needs to find for their kid. Find where they can feel like, I'm helping, I'm doing something.
So that was your first challenge with Lauren. When did other things appear to you?
Oh, well, this is what's interesting, Angela, is that, for us, we didn't notice she did all of her early childhood milestones were on time, as far as talking and crawling and cruising furniture and walking. She was actually our earliest walker of all the 3 kids. She walked at about 10 and a half months old. So we didn't see any developmental issues until, honestly, she'd had her 3rd cleft lip surgery when she was about 3.5. And she was in preschool, her first year of preschool at the time. And it was a very challenging surgery. They had to basically reposition one part of her nostril. Sure, quite painful for her as well. So that was about a 2-month recovery in the spring of her first year of preschool. And after that, she just really wasn't the same child. We really, I know that was a very traumatic experience for her to go through that. And it was her first year in a preschool setting. She'd been in daycare before, but in a setting where you're actually being expected to do some type of academic work. So that's what we noticed. One of the things that I noticed was that she wasn't stacking blocks like other kids. She was actually lining them up. And at the time, I didn't think about that. I thought, oh yeah, she just wants to do it differently. I didn't realize that could be a key indicator. But one thing I also want to share with your audience is that it's important, when you see something that you're not quite sure about, keep going until you find an answer that you're satisfied with. I have to share that we went to one doctor. He said, is she stimming? Is she rocking? Is she doing things like that? And I said, no. He said, okay, then she's not autistic. And I said, okay, well, that's great. But then what is this? And so we had to keep digging and digging. And it wasn't until probably, January of 2006. So she was just shy of her 5th birthday. That is when we actually got the diagnosis of the mild intellectual disability. She was diagnosed with PDD-NOS, which stands for Pervasive Developmental Disorder Not Otherwise Specified. They thought that she might have ADD, ADHD, so she did go on medicine when she was in kindergarten. And we had that for probably until she was about in 7th grade. And then I love that her teacher asked me, she said, no, I want to see the real Lauren. Take her off the meds.
What were the meds for? What were they addressing?
It was really to help her focus in school. But we realized is that it was the IDD leading the attention deficit, not the attention deficit leading the IDD, if that makes sense.
It does.
So in other words, she really didn't need to have that kind of medicine. She just needed a smaller environment where someone could work with her more one-on-one, because she would get things, but it would take some time that wasn't going to work in a traditional classroom setting.
So things went better without the medicine in school.
Yes. And she did. I mean, I told her teacher, I said, okay, be ready, because she is chatty. And she said, but that's her. That's her personality. And by taking that medicine, you're masking it. And I think girls present differently than boys do. I think, with boys, usually those meds are used because they're hyperactive and they're running around the classroom and all those things. And with a girl, I think a lot of times those attention deficit problems present more quietly. Like maybe they're sitting in the back of the classroom. They don't volunteer for an answer because they're not sure about it, or they don't want to call attention to themselves because they don't feel confident in the classroom setting. And so now, years later, I can identify that very quickly in young ladies. But back then, we were just trying to figure things out.
So what were some other resources that helped in addition to having a good teacher at school? What other things helped Lauren at that time?
Oh, my goodness. So many. I mean, Angela, one of the things, too, that I want to encourage parents to do is keep asking questions. Ask questions of friends. Find out as much as you can. And because what happened was, for us, it was getting that information, like kind of backing up a little bit, talking about when she was young before she started kindergarten. We had the opportunity to figure out, after a couple preschools that didn't work out as well for her, we had this wonderful teacher, and her name was Mary Ellen. So if Mary Ellen is listening, thank you so much. She had given us the information about, it's called a developmental enrichment program. At that time was housed at St. Luke's Methodist Church. And so what we did is we actually put her in there 2 days a week and supplemented her traditional learning. And again, this was before we had that initial diagnosis. So we were just trying to figure out how to best support her at the time. And we also had her going to yoga classes, children's yoga classes, which actually inspired me to become a yoga teacher and have my own business years down the road for that, because I did see how children need movement for their brain and their body to connect. And I think, with the traditional setting, a lot of times a student is asked to sit, for 8 hours a day in a seat and not talk, not, just follow along. And it's just not really natural, I think, for most people.
In addition to this wonderful experience with Lauren's teacher, talk about how this journey impacted your family.
Oh,
your other children,
yes.
yours and
Yes.
Sean's parents.
Well, at that time, she just had her grandmothers were still alive, and they were very supportive, very understanding. And I will say it did help because my older sister was a speech pathologist in a school system locally. So she was a great just support as far as she could see things. She worked with children at school all the time. So she could kind of see, what some developmental stages were. And really, I was very lucky because even my friends that knew me way before I had children, they knew Lauren from day one. And so they were always very supportive. And a couple of them have daughters and sons about my children's age, and that we would play together, and their children were always very accepting. And I think, again, that speaks to them as parents, teaching their children that everybody may be unique and have different learning abilities, but that everyone matters and should be accepted. So I thought that was a great support. Because we did grow up here in Indianapolis, we were fortunate that we did have an extended family in town. So we tried to get them together as much as possible. My children were the youngest in the family, so we didn't get to see them all the time, but definitely it did help to have that support network. And then as I grew it, getting to know you later, in the writing group, and then later on in more recent groups that I've been involved with and Lauren's been involved with. But again, I can't stress enough for people, find your support. And that changes with the chapters in your child's life and in your life as well, too.
Later in life for Lauren, talk about the transition from high school to adulthood. What things supported Lauren during that time?
Oh, yes. Boy, that's kind of right where we're at right now. Basically, with our everyday life, it's really evolving into a new chapter. Our kids are all grown, and each needs us to show up in a different way for them. So trying to navigate what it feels like to parent an adult child, and particularly our oldest, who has a different ability. It has been years since she had the structure of a school setting. She graduated from private school in Lawrence, specifically for children with learning differences, in 2020. And yes, that was during the pandemic, so it was an interesting time for everybody. That fall, she attended a program called LIFE, which is an acronym for Learning is for Everyone. It was a program at University of Wisconsin in Whitewater. And we loved it because she got to have an immersive experience. She lived on campus in the dorm. She did attend life skills classes on campus instead of 4-credit classes like the other students. Her group was going into learning about safety and how to cook and how to take care of yourself. And that was offered through the School of Education. So this is kind of a plug for our Indiana schools. Hello, Ball State, IU, ISU. You might look at starting a program like that because it really is wonderful for people like my daughter, Lauren. She had originally planned to be there for a couple years, but because of the pandemic, we decided to take a break for a year and come home. And she, at that time, in the summer of 2021, she found a job at Fresh Time, and she started participating in a local support group for people, young people. And that's called Thrive Social Club, another one that Angela and her daughter are involved with us. So we got to reconnect, which was wonderful. And that was started by a friend of ours, Mary. She did try a day program here locally. Between 2022 and 2025, that's really, Angela, where we had our struggles, because she was several years out of school then. It became clear she probably wasn't going to go back to the program up in Wisconsin. And we were just trying to figure out where to go from here because she'd aged out of all the programs that are available to young people up to age 22. So she was trying different part-time jobs. She did an internship with a company called Be Free here and attended a training program at Erskine Green in Muncie to help rebuild her confidence. While we did at that time apply for Medicaid for the waiver, I will say if you are starting that journey, we went ahead and did it because we weren't sure about the future, and we figured if she doesn't need it in the future, great, but if she does, she's already on it. At that time, there wasn't much of a wait list. I think there might be one now, but I would encourage anyone who is concerned about their child to contact their local office and get that process started.
Kim, excuse me, tell me more about the waiver. What sorts of services can a person get once they receive the Medicaid waiver?
Yes. And well, there's so many. Like Angela, my daughter doesn't have any medical concerns, but if you do have a child with medical concerns, that can can also help with any type of therapies that they need. I know for us, we've been able to take advantage of rec therapy, which is wonderful. We have a wonderful therapist who comes once a week, and she and Lauren go out and do all kinds of fun stuff together. Gets her out in the community, keeps her active. We also are able to do behavior therapy. And when I say behavior therapy, there's a very large, anywhere from someone who has disruptive tendencies to even someone who just needs to help navigate social situations, which is more what my daughter needed. So what they do with my daughter, is they go out either in the community and they go shopping for food. They make a list. They go shopping for food. They come back to our house and they prepare it. So she's learning cooking skills. She's learning safety skills. She's learning budgeting skills. These are all life skills that we feel are very important for her to have, especially, because obviously my husband aren't always going to be here. So it's important for us that she learns that. And also navigating public transportation. She's had some opportunities to do that. And her behavior therapist had been very instrumental in helping her with that. So those are two things. There's so many more. There's music therapy, art therapy, and these are all things that are covered under the waiver if your child qualifies. So that's important to know.
You're helping her become more independent, right?
Yes.
And there's other services too. The waiver actually waives income. So even if you have good private insurance as a family, the waiver can contribute or add to that. The child gets Medicaid.
Yes.
So that's another thing. I find that some families use it for respite.
Yes.
You need to take a break as a caregiver.
Exactly.
So in your state, I'm going to leave a resource in the on the site here. So you can check to see how to apply for the waiver in your state. There are wait lists. There is some paperwork to fill out, but there's more information there.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, Kim, on
Absolutely. And if I can add one thing too, Angela, I just thought of, Lauren went to, as I mentioned, University of Wisconsin in Whitewater. And the reason we went out of state, because our state doesn't currently have a program like that in a college. But here's the kicker. All of her friends that were from Wisconsin, their state waiver paid for half of that education.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Which made it so much more affordable for many, many families. So again, the programs I mentioned, a lot of states have them. So if you're listening from another state, check that out. And if your child is one that you think might benefit from one of those post-secondary type programs that are available, definitely check into the coverage because it can really help financially.
So you talked about teachers that were helpful, family that was helpful. You've shared some resources. What were those unexpected joys, breakthroughs? What were the victories that brought hope back into the picture? And maybe talk more recently, because I know there were some challenges after she left high school.
Yes.
What were those exciting joys?
Well, and I'll start with when she finished high school, because one, it was the middle of this strange pandemic that none of us, unless you're over 100 years old, had lived through. So I was proud of her for managing that. I mean, I think the students did better than the parents did in those years, but it was great because her school was small. So they did have their graduation and they had it outside. She was one of 12 that graduated that year. So I was so proud of her because it wasn't easy. That was a really hard struggle. All those years, we did a lot of tutoring. Teachers would help. They helped her get ready. She was able to obtain a high school diploma, which we were really proud of her for doing that. And then more recently, we're proud of her for turning things around. As I mentioned earlier, we did have some struggles when she came back from the LIFE program because we were trying to look for structure. We're trying to figure out what works for her. Does she need a day program? Does she need, right now she has a job and It's great. I don't know if I can mention the name of the place she works at.
Sure.
But it's Wheeler Mission Store, and they are wonderfully supportive with people that have different abilities. And she just celebrated in February her 1 year anniversary. So I'm so proud of her because we had really struggled to find and keep jobs in with some of the challenges she's had. So that is a wonderful thing. And one of the other things is she has really taken an interest in taking care of herself, because I think as you pivot into your 20s, it's not your parents, making sure that you eat right and making sure that you get your exercise, but you have to want to take care of yourself. So self-care, I think, pivoting into from me directing it to her doing that. She has a trainer 2 times a week now. And so that really helps her get back into that groove, because she did play sports, when she was growing up. And that was a big thing for her, because maybe she was challenged in the classroom academically, but when she was on the volleyball court or when she was on the basketball court, nothing could stop her. It was just that natural talent, that natural ability, and just that mind-body connection, I think really was so helpful to her. So more recently, that's what she's been doing. She's been really reviewing with her behavior therapist, and also we have a dietitian that we work with. So again, you have to find your own team members. And I know you and I have talked about that before, and that evolves over time. So now I say that whenever we meet with her therapist twice a year and her case manager for the waiver, we always say it's Team Lauren. We're all Team Lauren, and I'm so blessed now. And it took a couple years. It really did take some time to get some long-term individuals with her. They all collaborate beautifully with one another, which is huge because they don't all work for the same provider. So the fact that they're all on board, they know what direction that they want to take and what Lauren wants to take, and they really treat her like the adult she is. They really, ask her, what she thinks first, rather than saying, okay, this is what we need to do. And I think that's another thing, if I can share that with other parents who might be listening. If your child is in their early 20s, mid 20s, or older, really giving them that empowerment, making them feel like an individual rather than, okay, always focusing on your challenges or your shortcomings. Because one thing I did, I raised 3 children and 2 did not have learning disabilities. But one of the ways we always worked with our younger kids is saying, everybody has strengths and challenges. Ours are different, but we have them. So we all try to build on our strengths and acknowledge those, but that doesn't define us. And I think if any nugget that I could take away from today to help everyone is that, yes, you do need to acknowledge your child's challenges and try to get help for them in ways that are meaningful for them. But have some fun as a family. Do things that everybody can enjoy, and it really made a difference, because we would, like, for instance, when the kids were young, Lauren was an excellent speller. I mean, she could read beautifully. She had no problems reading. It was more comprehension that was a problem for her. So what I would do is, because we didn't have a traditional oldest child as kind of the leader of the siblings, I would have her quiz her younger sister and brother on their spelling words. And that made her feel valued. It made her feel important. And it also let her sister and brother know, hey, my sister's smart. She's just smart in a different way.
Kim, take a moment to reflect back on this experience over the last almost 25 years. What has this experience with Lauren taught you, taught your family? What have you learned from this?
Oh boy, so many things, Angela. It's such a good question, because I feel like we've all become more patient. I thought I was a patient person before. And the other thing is too, you realize, and we've drawn a lot on our faith because sometimes you don't know what's coming next. And you have to let go of that control of, I had come from a sales background. So to me, you know, it was very finite. You work hard, you earn your paycheck, you earn your bonus or whatever. You're totally in control of that. However hard you work is how much money you make. But in this situation, when you're parenting a child with a different ability, every day is different. I say some days, you know, things were clicking and she was doing great. And then the next day, it was almost as if all of that went away and we were starting from scratch again. So one of the key things that we learned is you've got to meet people where they're at, but not just other people and family members and friends, but also meet yourself where you're at. Like there are some days when it's a draining day for me. And those are the days I finally learn, you know what? You're not going to overschedule yourself today. You're going to take self-care days. And if I could, one nugget that I would say is very important when you're early in the journey, take that time. Take that time away for yourself. If you need to hire a babysitter, if you're fortunate and have parents or family members that can step in and just say, you know what, I need a break. I just need to go walk in the park for a while, or my husband and I want to go away for the weekend. Can you watch the kids, for them? And that is so important, because one of the things, my husband and I didn't get away as much as I think we should have. We did have our date nights. So we did hire a babysitter once a week. That was our Saturday night date night. We go out to dinner, and that was great because you have to stay connected to each other. But it is really important to take that time for yourself, and it's okay to not be okay sometimes, if that makes sense.
I think you make a really good point. I often say, remember to care for the caregiver.
Yes.
And you said that so beautifully. I want people listening today to remember to take care of yourself.
Yes.
These are all really good pieces of advice. Is there anything else you want to say that to families that are listening right now? Mm-hmm. They've just received their child's diagnosis. The child is young, 3-4 years old. They've, again, just learned their diagnosis. What kind of message would you like to give to them, or piece of encouragement?
That's wow. And I've been there. I've actually been there twice with the, cleft lip situation, and then later with the diagnosis of the learning disability, which was more a long-term situation. Well, really that, you're stronger than you know. And, again, I'm calling on my faith on this, but give those worries to God, and He's got this. So we don't have to. But one of the things more practically that I would do is keep asking questions. Like, I know this sounds so funny, but one of the things I did, and it was probably a takeaway from my old days as a sales rep, but when my daughter first had her cleft lip surgery and first had the diagnosis of a learning disability later on, I always kept a big file. So anytime a friend or acquaintance, somebody gave me information, I had it right there. And I had it with me. I would have it in the car so that, if the kids were at a therapy or something and I wanted to follow up on a tip that somebody had given me, like, oh, you might want to check this out. This might be helpful for Lauren. Then I had that with me, and I felt empowered. So again, getting back to that knowledge is power, is ask questions, find out everything you can about, the situation you're in. Like if your child just got diagnosed with autism, there's so many supports, and there's so many more supports than there were. There's so many locally here too. I know you have listeners all over, but if you're in the Indianapolis area, there's tons. There's even a new magazine that was started like 5 years ago, Uniquely You. And I have to give them a shout out because they always list a lot of resources and a lot of supports in the back of their magazine for people who live in the greater Indianapolis area or central Indiana. But each state is going to have something similar. So again, call around, ask around, get the information you need, and don't be afraid to pivot too. There are times when maybe you're trying something and it's not working. Don't just keep doing it because your neighbor said it's the best thing for your daughter or son. You have to really rely, I would say, on your own intuition. If things aren't feeling right, then it's important to change course, and don't be afraid to, because all of our lives are evolving, whether we have a challenge or not. And so, having that adaptability is so important, and it's going to help your sense of peace too.
Is there anything I didn't ask or you didn't get a chance to talk about that you'd like to share?
Gosh, boy, Angela, I could talk on forever about this, but I know your listeners might have heard this, and I think you've heard this too. But I want to leave everyone with this because I think it's so important in establishing that attitude of gratitude, no matter what you're facing. I think we've all heard this. Most of us have in the special needs community. It's an analogy of, let's say you're planning a trip and you're going to France and you're going to see the Eiffel Tower and you're so excited. You're going to see all these things, and the plane lands and you look around. You're not in France. There's no Eiffel Tower. Where's the L'Arc de Triomphe? No, you see this beautiful sea of tulips, all different colors, all different shapes. You see windmills. And you're like, wait a minute. I didn't sign up for Holland. I'm in Holland. I wanted to go to France. And the reason I bring that up is because just because it's different doesn't mean it's not beautiful.
That's lovely, Kim. Thank you for sharing. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we say goodbye today?
Oh, gosh. One thing that I will say, and this probably has to do more with people who have older children that have challenges, but social media. I have to bring this up, and maybe it's because this is the stage that I'm in, that we're in with our daughters right now. I love social media. I love it. I love sharing. I love to hear about friends' vacations and weddings and things like that. But sometimes it's important, I think, to take a cleanse. You have so many things coming at us now, especially if you're struggling right now with something with your adult child. You don't really need to know everything that's going on with all 1,000 of your Facebook friends. Especially an example of this would be, let's say, if your adult child is struggling to land a job, maybe you don't need to see someone's post about their same-age adult child becoming the youngest CEO of their company. Not that you're not happy for them, but it's human nature to compare. And that is the one thing I will leave it. Please don't compare your child to somebody else's child. It's so hard. It's easy to say that. It's so hard not to do it. But it's going to protect your peace, and whatever that means to you. If you need to take a break from social media, doesn't mean you don't care about your friends and family. It just means, I'm going through something right now, or my adult child is going through something right now, and we need to protect our peace. You can only take so much energy in the day, and you want to make sure that you're feeding that energy positively for your child and for yourself as well.
Great point. Thank you for sharing that. Kim, it has been lovely to have you here today. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Anytime.
We'll invite you back. I think it'd be fun to invite the Thrive women for a fun talk on the podcast about how awesome Thrive is.
Excellent.
For our young people with learning disabilities and challenges, and maybe encourage people to start a group like that in their town. Yes,
absolutely. I meant to mention Thrive Social Group. That has been just a godsend because it doesn't matter what your child's challenges are. Everybody gets together, and it's just been great because the moms are awesome. And we have a lot more in common than just having a child with a different ability. I mean, that's the other thing, is we are people too. We are people first.
Kim, I'm deeply grateful for you sharing your story today with such honesty and hope, reminding us that unexpected paths can lead to resilience, connection, and deeper meaning. We hope something you heard today stays with you and supports you on your own journey. If this conversation resonated with you, we invite you to follow the podcast, share it, or reach out to share your own story, because we're stronger when we travel together through it.